Welcome, everyone, to this deep dive into the source material you've shared. Today, we're looking at something really interesting. It's how artificial intelligence is starting to play a bigger role in education. Specifically, how it might actually help learners with differences, like dyslexia.
Yeah, exactly. Our goal here is to, well, sift through your sources and really pull out the key insights, the nuggets that show how AI could support, genuinely inclusive learning. And importantly, it's not about replacing human connection, right? It's about maybe extending our reach.
hmm And there's this fascinating tension in the material, isn't there? Can an algorithm, which is basically just code and data, can it really help us understand something as complex as human as dyslexia? And what does that actually mean for students and for teachers?
That's the core question. So maybe let's start by setting the scene. Why is supporting students with dyslexia often such a struggle? Even when everyone's trying their best. What do the sources say about the main challenges?
Well, they point to some pretty persistent hurdles, things that make it hard to give consistent support. One really big one is diagnosis timing. Often it just happens too late, sometimes not until secondary school, maybe even later.
Right, which means years, potentially, where a student feels like they're just failing or not smart enough.
Exactly. And then there's the structure of the classroom itself. Traditional tasks, lots of reading, lots of writing in a very specific way. These can be huge barriers for students whose brains just process information differently.
Yeah, the system isn't always built for them. It creates immediate obstacles.
You can see how that would just chip away at confidence over time.
Oh, absolutely. The emotional side is massive. The material talks about, feelings of shame or just pure exhaustion from trying to keep up, especially when everything is so text-heavy. Just getting to the information is a battle.
And what about the teachers? On the flip side,
Well, the reality for them is incredibly tough, too. You've got full classes, packed timetables. Trying to give that truly one-on-one adapted support to every student who needs it. It's incredibly hard to do that consistently at scale.
that deep personalization, it's vital.
Yeah.
But yeah.
There just aren't enough hours in the day for one person to manage it all perfectly.
Okay, right. So let's unpack this then. Given those real-world limits, could technology, specifically AI, maybe step in, help fill some of those gaps?
This is where the material really shifts focus. It frames AI not as a replacement teacher, but more like a tool, something that can amplify what humans do well. It adds a layer of, let's say, intelligence to our empathy. It can handle certain tasks consistently.
Tasks that are hard for humans to keep up with for everyone.
Precisely, things that require constant monitoring or adaptation across many students.
Okay, so what kind of things are we actually talking about? What can these AI tools do?
The sources mention some really interesting capabilities. For example, AI can analyze how a student reads aloud. It can pick up on subtle things like hesitation patterns or pacing changes, things a teacher might miss in a busy classroom.
Okay.
You can also spot patterns in writing across different assignments, identify consistent challenges a student might be having.
And this idea of dynamic content,
Yeah,
adjusting things in real time, that sounds huge.
it really is. Imagine AI adapting the reading level of a text on the fly based on whether the student is finding it easy or struggling, or offering what they call multimodal support,
Meaning?
like instantly changing text to audio or audio back to text, or letting feedback happen in different ways, spoken, written, maybe even visual. It caters to how different people process things best.
So it's not just static, it's reacting to the learner.
Exactly. It's picking up on interaction data, those subtle cues. And then it can even suggest specific strategies or scaffolds, supports tailored right then and there.
Mm.
And the material is clear. This isn't just theory. These tools are out there being used now.
Okay, this is where it gets really, really interesting for me. It's not sci-fi anymore. Your sources actually name specific tools. Can we look at some of the concrete examples?
Yeah, absolutely. There are several good examples already making a difference. Microsoft's Immersive Reader comes up a lot. It's known for helping with reading fluency. And it offers amazing customization fonts, spacing, background colors, read aloud features. Students can tweak it to fit their specific visual needs.
Right, I think I've seen that. What about things like Speechify or Read and Write? I hear those names sometimes.
Yeah, those are powerful too. Their main job, basically, is to take any digital text, a website, a document, and turn it into speech. For a student who struggles just decoding the words, that's like unlocking the door, instant access. And they have features like controlling the speed, highlighting words as they're spoken, helps with focus and comprehension.
Mm-hmm. And then there's L'Explore. That one sounded different, using eye tracking.
Well, Explore is fascinating, yeah.
Mhm.
It literally uses eye-tracking cameras combined with AI to watch how a student's eyes move across the page when they read. Where do they pause? How do they follow the lines? The AI analyzes those physical reading patterns to spot potential difficulties, sometimes much earlier than standard tests can.
Wow, okay. Tracking the physical act of reading.
Exactly. And then there's Google's Read Along app.
What's that one do?
That one's more interactive, maybe for younger learners or those building basic fluency. It actually listens to the student reading aloud from the screen, and it gives immediate gentle corrections and feedback, almost like a friendly reading partner, kind of gamified.
Makes practice less intimidating, maybe.
That seems to be the idea. Less like a test, more like a guided activity.
So when you look at all these different tools, Immersive Reader, Speechify, Lexplore, Read Along, what's the common thread? What's the big takeaway?
I think the key insight, the thing the sources really emphasize, is that these tools adapt to the learner. It's not the learner having to bend themselves to fit the standard material. The tool adjusts. It provides support that's dynamic, it's responsive, it's tailored to what that individual needs right in that moment.
Okay, that makes sense.
And what's really striking here is how AI can offer something humans just can't replicate, at least not at scale, which is that tireless, precise adaptation and data tracking.
So the AI doesn't get tired, doesn't forget the details from last week. How does that constant precision actually help the student day to day?
Well, because it can track things so meticulously, like the student's reading speed, how well they're retaining new vocabulary, maybe even subtle signs of frustration from how they interact with the tool. Because it tracks all that, it can offer support that's incredibly personalized and, crucially, consistent.
Like what sort of support? Continuous adjustments?
Yeah, exactly. Like maybe dynamically changing the difficulty of reading passages based on how they're doing right now. Or giving really specific bite-sized feedback on writing, almost instantly after it spots a recurring issue. The material even mentions the potential for, like, a basic form of sentiment analysis.
Sentiment analysis, like it knows if the student is upset.
Not quite like understanding emotion, no. More like recognizing patterns in interaction that often correlate with frustration. So if it detects those patterns, it might automatically offer an easier version of the task or suggest taking a quick break. It's pattern matching, not empathy.
Got it. And connecting that back to the teacher in the busy classroom.
That's the key link. The AI can handle this constant, detailed monitoring and adapting in the background, almost invisibly, which frees up the teacher's mental energy and actual time. While the AI provides one kind of tailored support, the teacher can focus on direct teaching, group work, and that crucial human element.
Okay, but this does bring up a really important question, doesn't it? The sources touch on this. Can an algorithm really understand dyslexia? Because it's not just mechanics, right? It's about the frustration, the resilience needed, how it shapes identity. Can AI get that?
Yeah, and the material's pretty direct about this. The answer is basically no. AI cannot replicate or understand that deep-lived human experience of having dyslexia. It doesn't grasp the emotional journey, the years of maybe feeling less than, the strength it takes to keep going, what it means for who you are. That's human territory.
Okay, so it doesn't get the human side, but it's still useful.
Absolutely. The sources argue it's still incredibly valuable. Look at what it can do. It offers unwavering consistency. AI support doesn't have bad days or get impatient. That consistency and the fact that it's non-judgmental, it's just a tool, can actually reduce the shame a student might feel asking a person for help again and again.
Makes sense. Less self-consciousness, maybe.
Potentially, yes. And by helping students achieve small successes, complete tasks, make measurable progress frequently, that can be a huge confidence builder over time.
Which I guess allows the teacher to lean into the human side more.
That's the core argument presented. AI handles the data-heavy, adaptive, sometimes repetitive tasks. And that frees up the human teacher to be what students truly need, especially students facing challenges. They need that empathetic guide, the relationship builder, the person who fosters belonging.
So the AI isn't the whole solution then, not by a long shot. What is that essential human role that the material says is still absolutely critical?
This is maybe the most important point. The teacher's role doesn't disappear. If anything, it becomes even more crucial, just different. The sources highlight several key roles. First off, curating the tools.
Choosing the right tech.
Yes, choosing AI tools that are not just fancy, but actually appropriate for their specific students. Considering personalities, cultural backgrounds, the specific learning goals. It's not one size fits all.
Right. It's not just about throwing tech at the problem.
Not at all. And then Teachers are vital for explaining the tools, helping students understand why a particular tool might help them, how to use it effectively, and really importantly, knowing when it's the right tool versus when maybe they need to try something else or ask for human help.
So, teaching students to be smart users of the technology.
Exactly, which leads to another crucial role, teaching self-advocacy, empowering students to understand their own learning profile, their strengths, their challenges, and then teaching them how to strategically use these tools to support themselves, to take ownership.
Okay. And tying the tech support back to the bigger picture.
Yes, absolutely. Bridging that gap, connecting the specific support the AI offers with the broader emotional and social learning that happens in a classroom. The material really lands on this thought. AI can extend our reach, make certain things possible. But the heart of inclusion, the core of education, it's still relational. It's that connection between teacher and student.
So let's try and boil this down. What does all this mean for you listening right now? Whether you're a student or an educator thinking about these tools, or maybe just someone interested in how tech is changing learning.
Well, the perspective in your sources seems to be that inclusion isn't about making everything the same for everyone. It's more about actively removing the friction points, the barriers that make learning harder than it needs to be for some students, and at the same time, increasing access, opportunity, and hopefully the joy in learning.
And AI, used thoughtfully, alongside skilled teachers, seems like it could be a powerful lever for that, especially for dyslexia.
That's the idea. By offering maybe deeper insights into individual needs through data, by providing more flexible ways to access information and show understanding, through those multimodal tools,
Yeah.
and potentially by delivering that quiet, consistent support that might reduce stigma.
So the suggestion is we use these algorithms not to replace our judgment, but to sharpen our insights, to help us do the human part better.
Yeah, I think that captures it well, enhancing our capacity to support every learner effectively.
It's definitely a shift in thinking about technology's role.
It really is.
Well, we've taken quite a deep dive here into your source material on AI and dyslexia support. We've looked at the challenges, the potential of these AI tools, and that absolutely critical ongoing role of the human teacher.
Yeah, and if you step back and look at the bigger picture, how we understand learning differences is constantly shifting. And technology, well, it seems like it's becoming a really significant partner in that evolution.
Your sources definitely make a strong case for AI as potentially a tool for better inclusion, specifically focusing on dyslexia here.
Which, it leaves us with a pretty interesting question to ponder, doesn't it? If AI can provide this kind of consistent, adaptive, non-judgmental support for the specific patterns we see with dyslexia, how else could we potentially leverage this kind of technology? Could it help us identify and support other diverse learning needs? Needs that our traditional methods also sometimes struggle to fully address.
That's definitely something to think about. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive. We really hope it gave you some valuable insights from your sources and maybe some new questions to consider about the future of learning.